Hello, BookTube. I'm back for hopefully the third and last uh, video for my Q&A. I sort of joked that we could go into multiple videos, but either well, the questions have been really good all the way through, and either that or I've just been waffling on. You don't need to answer that. And now from Bill Rutenberg. Uh, Sean, I love your channel. Thank you, Bill. Uh, you got a great channel too. It's amazing for American history. It is great to see that stuff. I've always had an interest in it as well, but I've left that one of the interests that I left behind. I could have added that to an earlier question, um, but I just I'm interested in too many things. That's my downfall. Thanks for doing the QA for the audience. Thank you. Number one, if in the future I was to go to Canada, what would you recommend me to visit cities, sites, your favorites, and why? I have not traveled much throughout Canada. That's the thing because it's just such a vast place. I was mostly contained to sort of southern Ontario. I was born in northern Ontario, and mostly southern Ontario, Toronto, a bit to Quebec. I would say that Quebec City is really great. It's got a lot of history. Quebec City would be a great place to visit. Um, Toronto has a great history too. There's still, I think, quite a few bookshops there. Um, there's the CN Tower. There's just history there. But yeah, it's like and from what I understand, there's other places like there's Vancouver and that is supposed to be great. The mountains, the Rockies out there, the mountains that I'm sure that would be great to see. And but I just never have. And go out, you might not be familiar with the size of the lakes that are there. The Great Lakes are amazing. Excuse me. So you could do a bit of there if you're into fishing. You could go fishing um, on one of the lakes or smaller lakes. Camping. There's a great park in Ontario called Algonquin Park. It's just a vast park, but I don't think it'd be much different from what you'd be seeing in the states. But I would say like places that I've been would be Quebec City would be on the top of my list to recommend to people, and because of the history and the old buildings that are there. Because Canada, it's been there for a long time, but there's not much in the way of old buildings. They just there's renewal that they just tear everything down, and if anything that's if you do get the early homesteaders, in an archaeological sense, historic archaeology, there's just they don't exist hardly anymore. They're very few and far between. And like in Toronto, there are some older houses, but there are stuff in Quebec that they've preserved a little better. Um, Nathan Fong, congrats, Sean. Thank you. Do you have a favorite book and/or favorite author? Do you collect different copies of the same book? Example, do you have a reading copy and a shelf copy? Do I have a favorite book and/or favorite author? That's really, really difficult to answer. I find that a very difficult question. I can have in the moment a favorite author, um, but there are authors that I go back to over and over and reread stuff. So let's do that. For science fiction, I mentioned Frank Herbert, Dune, Dan Simmons, Clifford Simak is the one, Isaac Asimov are sort of the tops. I mean, there's many others that I go back to. P.G. Woodhouse, I can reread his stuff till, well, I will read it till the day I die, and he's just rereadable all the time. Um, Balzac, I really like, and I've reread some of his stuff, and I still so much that I haven't read of his. History books. Well, there's a new sort of favorite author. I mentioned her already, Judith Follows. Fellows. Sorry, I'm getting mixed, but I think it's pretty easy to find. She writes stuff on Like I really like her Victorian City, the Dickensian London, just fabulous. And I will be rereading some of hers. Um, Lucy Worsley, very good writer, also documentary maker. I like her stuff. They're general, but they're very good. Um, Carl Sagan is one that I have reread. So some of his books is Dragons of Eden. I just love. Um, yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for me to answer my favorite of something. I have favorite, authors is the easiest way to do it. I have favorite authors. I think that would be the easiest way. And I've got books that I like that are my sort of my favorite books. Uh, but yeah, so sorry if I didn't answer the question in the way that you'd expected. Carol Atrix. Um, so congratulations on 400 subscribers. Thank you. Well deserved. Thank you. Where are you from in Canada? I live in Alberta, but I am from Saskatchewan. I grew up in northern Ontario, born on the Manitoulin Island. It's a large island. I think it's the largest freshwater island in the world. At least that's how I've been told and grew up with. It's about 100 and some miles long, and it varies from like literally a mile to maybe 30, 40, 50 miles wide, 40 miles maybe. So it's an odd shape, but it's long and narrow. It's in Lake Huron, but more specifically in Georgian Bay. Um, and that's where I was born and grew up, and then I moved to Toronto during the 80s, and then um, so it was late 88, 80, yeah, late 88, I moved to Kitchener-Waterloo. So where I lived for more than a decade before I came to England was Kitchener-Waterloo. Uh, I went to university in Waterloo, Wilfrid Laurier University, um, and yeah, and then I came to the UK. I've never been to my on one side. My mom's side family is from sort of Manitoba area, uh, but I've never been there. I've never been there at all. Um, I've never like I my traveling in Canada is not. I haven't done much. It's again. I just say that it's so vast, and I just haven't been able to afford to do it when I was there. Um, for ill or good, but good or bad. Um, so yeah, let me see. Then we got Curtis Books and Books. Okay, greetings from Ely. Yeah, I've been to Ely, the cathedral I like. It's been a while since I've been there because I used to go to Cambridge and then on to Ely by the bus. So I really like that. Um, but again, it's a long time. But I like the Ely Cathedral. What do you do for a living? And as you mentioned, you work a lot, and I'm always intrigued as to what it actually is. The closest I think you come is to say that it has almost nothing to do with it. Yeah, it has nothing whatsoever to do with books. I um, I don't want to give like specifics because I try not to do that because if I do, then if I say anything disparaging, certain things they jump on that kind of thing, especially disparaging about the company. Um, but like I sort of run in a certain sense. I'm not a manager, but I manage technicians that are out in the field, and specifically in London, that do a service, paid service, but they go out and do things. And I make sure, well, it's a varied thing. It's changed recently, but it's basically they get certain jobs that they got to do, and there's a system that we use that has their jobs laid out. They work on from their PDAs, and I make sure and I liaise with them if they have any problems, being late, speak to customers, or if the material that they've been sent out with is incorrect, try to identify the correct material, rebook the appointment with someone else, and sort of dodging customers, irate customers, trying to help out the technicians, making sure they're more efficient, um, and you know push other ones that aren't efficient as much as possible, and try to organize them as best as possible for them and the business, sort of, which is at times sometimes a loggerhead, because what's good for the technician doesn't quite necessarily mean it's good for the business, and vice versa. And it's in a subject that I don't know well what they do work on. I don't have technical details of any of that stuff, but I don't know. I've just sort of learned on the job, and it's the organizational skills and the ability to sort of mediate at times is what it is. But now I've been sort of shifted from doing that, which thankfully I don't have to deal. I don't have to speak to customers and technicians as much anymore. I deal with the backside of it, uh, admin stuff, like the stuff once the jobs are done, to make sure that everything's correct on that, everything's been done correctly, and then sort of send them off to you know the company that will pay my company to do this and make sure everything is correct. Um, and the appointments that didn't go through, why didn't they go through? If they didn't call in, to try to rectify it, to get it rebooked again, and that type of thing. And just it's mostly admin at the moment. And um, I from an organizational view, I'm pretty good at that and fairly efficient to get the work done, which sometimes is a huge workload to do. But it's kind of something they can do, yeah, remotely from home here, because I am remotely working with the technicians in London to do their job. But yeah, nothing whatsoever to do with books. It's not a company where there's a book culture there at all. There's a few people that will read, but it is because I used to get books from Remainder House delivered there, rather than at home, because there'd be no one here to get them. And it's like people stare at me because I got a box of books. And then Curtis says, congrats on the big 400. Thank you. Um, John David, well, there was a remark that he made. I think I made a remark about Trump, I think, and a reaction to that on another video, and he says, congrats on the landmark. And I do want you look in the comments of this one, or so I'm not sure. I'm finding it difficult to copy and paste stuff now from on my phone, and I got to get my computer up, so it's difficult to put stuff in the descriptions. Um, but John David he doesn't post very often, but really great stuff. And he's been asked by Trip was to do an overdue Q&A. So do go over to his look in the questions. Is John David, and if I can, I'll leave a link. He's doing a Q&A. He's hit over, I think, 1,100 now. So it's an overdue one for him. Um, well, thanks, John, and I look forward to your answers to all this. Now, I think I'm at the last. I'm at the last question here. Uh, yeah, or last comment question is Michael Moore. Congratulations on reaching 400 subscribers. Thank you. I know you enjoy rabbit holes. Where do you record the results of your investigations? Is there a particular type, if there is such a thing, of rabbit hole you like exploring? Kind regards. Uh, yeah. Well, where do you sort of record uh, the results of your investigations? Sadly, I don't really. I enjoy the moment and finding it. It's sort of, I keep it in my head, which memory fails at times. Something that I should have done all the time, because I should have kept the record, because I do forget stuff, and it would be nice to look back on, how I got from point A to point B, or well, point A to point Z, and all the stops in between. But sadly, I just don't. And any particular type that I like, um, I like. I don't know if there's any particular one other than if something intrigues me. If I see something, I go, "What's that?" And it can be anything. It's like I did the one about the two. I just love, and I still sort of, look for stuff occasionally about this, coffee house where these two scholars were translating Homer the Iliad, and they argued over a noun or a verb or whatever it was, and they went out and had a duel with swords, and one was run through and killed. I want to know more about that because I just find it so weird and fascinating. And I suppose I guess it's a rabbit hole. The one I like the most is, I guess it's that I do the most, I should say, is when I get a book that has somebody's name in it or a book plate in it. I'm always intrigued to know who this person is, and I have spent a long time looking for stuff. And this is where I do need to get stuff written down with the books and a project to do, and because I find some fascinating things about these people, um, and that's really, I think, where a moth flying around, a little moth. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I think that's the one I mostly do, for trying to find the provenance of the book, um, and who owned it and how it got to me, because you get some wonderful inscriptions in books, um, and you wonder, like, there was one that I got, that I do have, where it was contemporary description, to a friend, two female friends, and it's from the United States, and it's like, how did that book wind up here? I'll never know how it actually did, but it's just one of those things that I'm interested in, or I've got a few South African poetry books that are just very small presses, and it's like, you know, what's the story behind how that came here? And that would be a rabbit hole that I would jump down and try to figure out. But in general, it's anything that I am sort of intrigued with, that is sort of, it's left, I guess, stuff that's left dangling in a lot of books, and it's just like, ooh, what's that? And yeah, and the problem with some of them are that it's an endless thing, because you go down and you find something, and then you get veered off on another another interesting tact, um, and it's some of them are not ending at all. But yeah, it's just, I think things that intrigue me, that are left hanging, that are quirky, odd, those type of things, because I find, odd that, two scholars arguing, and then they go out and duel and kill each other over a verb or noun or whichever it was. Um, that I find interesting. So okay, I think I've gone through everybody's questions here. So it's taken me, yeah, three videos to do it. And thank you. There's been some wonderful, all of them are wonderful questions there. And sorry I wasn't able to answer some of them, because I just don't have an answer, or the ability or the background to answer a few of those. But thank you, everybody, for asking the questions, and thank you for subscribing. And I think now, I'm at, um, yeah, I'm 413. Well, I actually lost a couple now. That last time I looked, I'm sure I had 415. So people come and they go. So 500. I'm just flabbergasted at how fast this has gone. In some ways, especially when I started it, it just, I figured there'd be two or three people watching, and within a week, thanks to Steve Donahue and other booktubers that are sort of do shout outs. So it's just I had 100, very very quickly, and I thank them, and and I thank everybody who's followed along with me and stayed, even though I haven't made videos regularly at times, and I'm still sort of now not I'm doing tags, and it's a work in progress because I can't access a lot of stuff to at the moment to pull out to talk about, but I'm working on that. So keep watching this space, and thank you for all the support, and have a good day, but too. Thank you.